What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Night Owls. I'm JJ Metz alongside Blake Quill, and we are back with our daily podcast. A little bit of a break. Yes, we took 3 days off, but we are back. It is officially game week, and we have finally made it. We had some college football games yesterday, and we are just 6 days away from the start of the regular season. Blake, how are you? How excited are you that football is now back? You were at the Dolphins game yesterday.
I
College
was.
football started. How are we feeling? What's the
Yo,
temperature like?
football, that's honestly started my favorite time of the year. Football is great, college, NFL, all that stuff. It's super fun to watch. I really enjoy covering, watching all the whole 9 yards about football. It's super great, and I'm excited to be working a lot with FAU this year. Really excited to dive into their season, and I have been diving in, going to fall camp, seeing some stuff preseason, and I feel like starting to buy in a lot more to this FAU program as we keep building up to this week. I mean, it's been the talk since July about this FAU team going to Maryland week one. So it's going to be super exciting to see what they can do on the field at noon in Maryland.
It is going to be super excited to see. And you mentioned FAU Maryland has been the talk since July. It is finally mock game week. Game week for FAU. Coach Kelly was talking about it. He did release his starters for the game last Friday. So we're really excited with that. But looking at this Maryland team, they aren't one of the stronger rosters in the Big Ten. They're projected to win just 4.5 games total this season. And that
Oh,
comes with 3 games that they are double digit favorites in non conference. So they're only expected to win one Big Ten game. They have a true freshman at quarterback. They lost a lot of their talent. They're coming off a 4-win season. Could FAU possibly pull off the upset here, Blake?
I think they can. Look, it's college football. We've seen bigger upsets than FAU beating Maryland just last year and even going back in the past. So I think an upset is very possible. We've even seen, I know JJ posted about it on Twitter, the sports books are even decreasing this line down a little bit because people are putting some of their money on FAU. So I think the upset possibility is very high. I mean, I'm excited to watch College Game Day, see what they say about this game because I know it definitely will be talked about as something to look at for the betting market and even just anyone in general. This FAU team is going to be sneaky good. I think, going into Maryland, obviously a weaker Big Ten team, going to have a really tough conference schedule, but I think FAU does have a chance to pull off the unexpected here. But I think from the people covering FAU and inside FAU, I think we have a good feeling about FAU coming in and winning this game than most of the other people in the nation have.
Yeah, and we could definitely shock the world where we're the only ones expecting to win that game. Now, Blake, you did mention the spread. It was 16 and a half 9 days ago. It's down to 13 and a half. It was 14 and a half yesterday. Every single day, it seems that like it keeps getting closer and closer when it comes to the spread. And I think that's a positive because that shows that the money is on FAU, especially with the spread. And this isn't one of those big games where so many people are betting on like a Texas Ohio State. This is a much smaller game, and to see it shifting so much, that's not something we usually see.
Yeah.
So I definitely think that FAU has the potential to pull off the upset against Maryland. But Blake, if they want to pull it off, who are some of the key weapons that they have to stop on Maryland, and how do you think FAU can win the game? What do you think the game plan should be? And a perfect scenario for FAU would be to stop this Maryland team.
So yeah, that's a good question. I think you mentioned true freshman quarterback. So I think the Terrapins might lean a little bit on the run game, and they do have a very solid running back, Nolan Ray, the redshirt sophomore. He did get some reps last year. I mean, I'm looking at some of his stats right here. 9 attempts for 51 yards against Penn State, which was a very good football team last season. Had a couple of touchdowns on the season against UConn and Villanova, obviously two smaller teams, but nevertheless, he got action in pretty much every single game, and he's going to be the primary back this season. So I think he's definitely someone that the Terrapins are going to use a lot. And honestly, I haven't heard much about him from anything outside of this covering FAU in this game in general. So I think he's definitely an underrated running back, but I hope the FAU Owls definitely look into him as the primary weapon in this offense. Obviously, a true freshman quarterback. I don't know if you want to throw him in the fire passing as soon as the game starts. So I think Nolan Ray is going to be crucial for the FAU defense to contain. I think they can do that with CJ to get Jr. in front, Wilkie Denon, and a speedy secondary, which is very important for stopping the run. They're going to be hopefully flying around and make Maryland pass. I think that's going to be the defensive game plan. Make sure put the ball in Malik Washington's hands, make him throw it, and that's when you take advantage. Got to have long yardage situations for Maryland. That's how you win any football game, but especially with a true freshman quarterback, you just don't know how capable he's going to be when the lights are brightest and the college football season begins.
Yeah, 100%. And we talked to Leon Hurt 2 days ago. He was saying that he wants to stop the run. That's something he's really been working on. He's FAU's linebacker who's returning for another year. And he said the emphasis has been to stop the run in the linebacker room, whether it's Tyler Stoltzky, Charquez Lee, Leon Hart. Obviously, the defensive line could definitely get after Malik Washington if he has to play superhero and have to do it all himself. As you mentioned, I think you said it perfectly. You want Malik Washington to have to do more than he needs to do. This is a true freshman quarterback who's playing his first ever game at the college level. Yes, he's a 4-star, but still, it is a new level here. The defensive line's looking really good on the interior. CJ and Bryce on the outside. Wilkie's looking really good. Deshaun Batiste is looking good. Um, Eric Brantley Jr. is looking really
Yeah.
good. At the right edge position, you got Ed Sledge at the interior line. Josh Roberts is going to get some playing time in the game. So this D line's looking really solid. It could definitely get after the quarterback. And Blake's been at fall camp. He's been watching the D line hit the sled. Coach Santana working with the defensive line. And we've really seen their bounce off the defensive line and it continuing to improve day in and day out. Blake, how do you think this game is going to go, and what is your prediction for FAU versus Maryland?
I think the game is going to be, well, I mean, what we keep saying is this game is going to be closer than most think it's going to be. And I don't think FE is going to steamroll Maryland because that's just not what is going to happen when they walk into a Big Ten stadium to start this college football season. I do think Maryland might jump out to an early lead. I mean, I'm talking like, get strike first with a touchdown, something like that. So I think Maryland might have the lead a little early in the game, definitely have the lead in the first quarter, maybe take that into halftime. I think FAU, it's going to be a team that has a lot of stamina. You've seen they're practicing the South Florida Heat going up to Maryland. I think this FAU Owls team is a team that can stay in it for the long run. So I can definitely see FAU making a big surge in the second quarter. Maybe getting it tied up in the third and then eventually winning in the fourth. I got to go for my score prediction. I mean, I think it's not going to be like a super low scoring or super high scoring game. Obviously, it depends a little bit on weather. We have a good idea. I think it's going to be decent weather up in Maryland to start this game. But obviously, things change. So I think I'm gonna go with score prediction here. FAU 28, Maryland 24. I think that's a pretty fair assessment. Maybe FAU gets 31 if they end up kicking a field goal. I think 28-24 Owls is a pretty fair prediction because I do think the Owls are going to win. I think it's going to be a close game, though, and it's going to come down to it. I think Maryland's going to have a chance to win it at the end of this football game, and the FAU defense will stand strong and eventually come out with the W and starting their season 1-0 and definitely putting the nation on notice.
Love to hear Blake. Blake's picking FAU to pull off the upset. The weather's going to be pretty good up there in College Park, 78 degrees and sunny. I love the bold prediction, Blake, and I'm going to give my prediction here. I actually think it's going to start the opposite way. I think FAU is going to come out really hungry. Maryland might be a little bit sleeping on this game because remember, this is FAU's biggest game of the season. This is the best opponent they'll face, the biggest environment they'll face, and this is going to be their best game played overall effort wise. So FAU has a history of playing these Big Ten teams close. Just 3 years ago, Purdue, who won the Big Ten West, they played them to 2 points. They played Michigan State last season to 6 points. They played Illinois 2 seasons ago to just 6 points. They've lost by an average of 4 points in the last three Big Ten opponents they faced. And this is the best FAU team, definitely the best quarterback to ever be starting at FAU throughout
Yep.
those last few years. So I think they're going to jump out. I think Assad Wasim is going to get a lot of key receptions early. I think he's going to surprise so many people. People are talking so much Easton Messer this, Easton Messer that. I think Assad Wasim could possibly be that guy. I think Caden Shields, Xavier Terrell, Jamari Sands, they're going to surprise some people. Coach Kelly said football starts up in the trenches. His offensive line is looking really good. Madden Sanker at guard. You have Alex Octavage at tackle. Q-Sean Sapp at center. I mean, overall, I think this FAU team is really talented. And I think that they have the better quarterback in this matchup. I think they get out to an early lead, and I think they win the football game by 3 points. I think they stop Maryland on the last drive. So give me the FAU Owls. So after FAU is riding high against a huge win, they'll return back home the week after to face FCS Florida A&M. Blake, how do you think that game's going to go?
You know, if my prediction of FAU winning does come true, I think FAU is going to be, they're going to be riding high. Obviously, they just beat a Big Ten opponent. So, I think they may jump out a little bit slow, but obviously the home opener, I think they get past FAMU pretty easily. And honestly, I don't know if we want to touch a lot on this game because I feel like FAU can handle business. So I feel like we should might as well just move on to the Shoolable here against FIU. And obviously, being a rivalry game, JJ, how are you feeling about that one? Obviously, at FIU at Pitbull Stadium.
I'm actually feeling really solid. FAU has dominated this matchup in terms of football. And I think you said it perfectly with the FAMU game. I think FAMU's going to maybe jump out to an early lead if FAU's riding high after that Big Ten win. You never know. This is, again, FAMU's biggest game of the year. They're playing an FBS opponent. This isn't FAU's biggest game of the year. It's kind of the opposite. I still think FAU wins by 30 plus, I'll say. But yeah, Shootable, I'm feeling really confident in. I actually think that this FAU team is the most talented it's been, and this FIU team is the
I
least
agree.
talented they've been. FIU is ranked 131st out of 136 FBS teams according to ESPN, which really shows their lack of talent that we see. And FAU is known for, beating them. Obviously, Keon Jenkins, their quarterback, he's a pure runner. He can escape the pocket. That could pose problems for the edge and the outside linebackers for FAU if Jenkins is able to escape the pocket. However, I think this FAU team is just too talented at every single position. And I think that they're going to win this game. FIU, again, overall rated 131 out of 136, which really
Yeah.
isn't that good.
Nope, not very good. I completely agree with you. So, based on my prediction, FAU is going to start out 3-0 and have to take on Memphis. And that is a game that I'm a little bit worried about. Memphis, I feel like, has always been a super competitive team. They've had some dominance in the American Conference, being ranked in the top 25 for a couple of years. That game is definitely going to be close. I feel like, I don't even want to say it, but I feel like it might be a little too far away to get a score prediction on that, just because I feel like this Maryland game. When I tell you guys, this is the most crucial game of FAU season. Winning or losing that can depend so much on how the future of this team goes. And starting out 3-0 would be a very impressive start for the Owls based on what other people are saying about this team. Facing Memphis, they do have the home field advantage. Time is to be determined, but if it's at noon, the heat could possibly play a factor. FAU Memphis, I feel like it's almost a coin flip, but if FAU has that win over Maryland, I would take them over Memphis. If FAU drops Maryland, I feel like this game could go either way. It's very dependent on this first game and how that team looks.
But
For
Blake,
to
we're
me,
assuming that FAU beat Maryland because that's how you predicted. And
we
this
are
is
assuming that FAU will beat Maryland. And if my predictions are true, if I'm the fortune teller of the college football season, FAU does beat Memphis in this game. But if my prediction skills are incorrect for some odd reason, I think FAU drops Memphis. And I feel like it's really weird to say, but like Memphis has so much potential to really be a team in the American that can compete. And so can FAU. So
yeah,
it's going to
Blake.
be a
But
close game. Nevertheless, close game.
I'm just looking at this and I'm thinking it's crazy. I also think FAU is going to start 3-0 and possibly beat Memphis. Remember, this is homecoming. It's going to be a red out for the FAU faithful. All the fans are going to be there. And again, Memphis is weaker than previous years. They lose Seth Hennigan, their quarterback of multiple years, to the draft. Now they have to start Brendan Lewis at quarterback, who really isn't that. I mean, he is experienced, but he doesn't have the star talent that Hennigan did. Hennigan got drafted. He single handedly won games just for Memphis alone. Lewis, he really doesn't have that. Uh, I think that overall, this Memphis team, they're led by a quarterback that's not too experienced. Their defense could definitely be good. Jaden Thomas is going to be that wide receiver one that we're going to see for them, but they do lose a lot, and they're ranked
Yeah.
number 3 in the AC preseason poll. Last season, they were number 1 in the preseason poll. So this year, their expectations are lower than years before. I think FAU wins this game. We both have FAU starting out 4-0, Blake.
Yeah, I mean, I think a 4-0 start and beating Maryland and Memphis could get some votes in the top 25. I don't think they could be ranked in the top 25. But, when you scroll all the way to the bottom on ESPN, you see a little number next to the name. I could see FAU possibly getting a vote starting 4-0. Let's move on to at Rice, which, obviously going on the road could be a tough game. But I will I will lean FAU's way here again in the Battle of the Owls. Honestly, I think FAU has enough to take on and handle Rice.
I definitely agree with you here. And I think that this Rice team is 1-0 against FAU in the American Conference. They beat FAU 2 seasons ago on the last game of the season. Whenever you travel to Texas, it is hard because you do have the slight time difference, but I think FAU is more talented overall than Rice. Blake, does this get FAU ranked, or do they just climb that receiving votes number?
I think they just climbed that receiving votes number at 5-0 because I think this FAU team, even if they do start 5-0, might be a little bit slept on as well. So I think they're still receiving votes. Then you got UAB.
Yeah,
Now,
Blake, and at this point, at 5-0 after beating 2 teams, you might be in that college football playoff conversation because the best G5 team makes the college football playoff with the automatic bid. And if you win this conference, this is the best conference in all of the G5. So
completely agree.
that just makes the path that much easier if they win this conference. Heading in to UAB, I believe it's a home game, Blake. Is
It
that
is.
true?
Yep. Home game.
So heading back home to UAB, the FAU faithful are going to be there. They're going to be strong. But could this be a trap game, Blake?
No, I think this game could definitely be a trap. I mean, obviously, you don't want to underestimate any team in college football just because everyone has talent everywhere, quite honestly. But this UAB team, it doesn't necessarily scare me. They do have a couple of transfers on offense, but a proven senior quarterback, Jalen Kitna. And that could pose some problems for the Owls. And obviously, gotta remember, we're going into week 6 of this college football season. Injuries could possibly be popping up around the whole league in general. So you got to remember, got to stay healthy. Health is your wealth in college football. This UAB game could be a trap, but I think they do get it done at since with home field advantage and the crowd behind them. 6-0, I could definitely see them entering the bottom half of this top 25 or very close to it in the receiving votes category. But watch out for Jalen Kitna. He's definitely someone that I think FAU fans should be like following as an American Conference player throughout the season just because of his experience.
Yeah, and UAB, they're coming off some really bad seasons. I'm very surprised that their head coach is still there coaching. I think he even said at the preseason American Conference media days that he's surprised that he's even there. I believe they won 1 or 2 games last year and then the same thing the year before. So the fact that he's still there is a huge surprise. He's going to be feeling the pressure, especially this could be a marquee win if he's still there against an undefeated team. But I think FAU wins this game as long as Caden Velkamp, all their guys stay healthy that we've got into on the offense and defensive side of the ball. I think that FAU could start 6-0. And Blake, I'm not going to ask you again if they're ranked here or not. We'll talk about it after this next game that they play, which I think is going to be a really interesting game. Now, you have
I
an
agree.
FAU team who's undefeated right now playing against your rivals in South Florida. Now, I will mention this. South Florida starts out the season versus Boise State. They're underdogs. Then, after Boise State, they play University of Miami. They're going to be huge underdogs. Then, after University of Miami, they play University of Florida. They're going to be huge underdogs. This USF team is supposed to have 3 losses at least, maybe 4 or 5 at the time. They may be giving not their full effort here if they're out of it, if they're out of that American Conference contention race. Obviously, even if they lose those 3 games, they could still win the conference, but still,
Yeah.
you got to be feeling low with that. But it is a rivalry game. How do you think this one goes, Blake?
You know, obviously USF did beat FAU last year, which I mean it's a rivalry game, and they did come into FAU and get the W. FAU traveling to Raymond James in one of the final years of USF playing there because they are getting that new stadium and an experienced quarterback for USF. I can smell a little bit of disaster here for the Owls. I have personally been to USF football games. I've been at FAU football games, and usually when USF is competitive, it can be a pretty good atmosphere, especially in a rivalry game. So, and to be an unbiased college football observer and spectator, even though we are on the Night Owls podcast, the number one FAU podcast, I will have to give the Owls an L here over USF. I think the Bulls will get it done in the rivalry game, and it's going to be close. I could see it going either way, of course, but in USF, they're going to be tested from the start of the season, and I think they can, take on FAU.
Me and Blake did not script this. I have my picks written down. We did not script this, to be clear. I have the exact same record so far as Blake does. And Blake, can you confirm we did not script this? But me and Blake so far throughout the first 7 games both have FAU at 6-1. I have that first loss coming to USF. And I think that this USF team is going to be really solid this year. I've already done a full USF preview. If you really want to go in depth, I did it at the Bay Area Examiner. So you guys can check that out if you're interested to go in depth with this USF team. I think they're going to be really good. I had them at number 2 in my conference media poll, just behind Tulane. I think this USF team is going to be really solid. I have USF over them. Blake, then they play Military Academy Navy. Now, FAU played Army last season, and they got destroyed. I think it was 24-3 or something. They could not
Yeah,
stop the triple option at all. How do you think this one goes? I mean, I believe it's in Annapolis, Maryland. And
it
FAU,
is.
this would be the second trip FAU would take to Maryland. But what are you thinking with this game?
I think this Navy team is not as good as they were last year. I mean, they're a significantly better team than they were. Obviously competing for the conference championship and all of the, great success they had last season. I think this Navy team definitely got a little bit worse. Um, but they're still a solid football team. I'm looking here at the ESPN rankings, and Navy is ranked number 4, just above Army and above a team like USF, which I did just say FAU would lose to. Now, with all that being said, I think this FAU team is going to have an edge to them if they lose to USF. I think this FAU team is going to be very displeased after losing to their rival USF. So I think this FAU team, experiencing their first loss season, comes out super duper hot, jumps out to a lead, and holds it, upsetting Navy. And that puts them with 4 conference wins on the season, with 4 conference games to go, and definitely in contention for that conference championship. So I think they do get a W over Navy in a surprising fashion, I think most would say.
Yeah, and I do want to go a little bit in depth to this Navy team because I'm actually also high on them. Them at number 3 in my preseason poll. They returned their veteran quarterback Blake Horvath. He's not just a really good passer. Navy doesn't really pass the ball that much. He doesn't just have a good arm, which he doesn't really have to use his arm, but he also has a really good legs. I believe he had 13 touchdowns on the ground last year just alone, which was the most in all of college football. He's returning. They returned their number one receiver and they returned their primary running back. I'm high on this Navy team and Blake. I think FAU loses two straight. I have them losing to both South Florida and Navy. These are both road games. FAU, I definitely think they could be hungry here, but I don't know if they could stop the triple offense. Their triple option. They're going to see an offense that they've never seen before. So give me Navy in that one. So Blake has FAU with a possibility to still win the conference. I have FAU with two losses. They are just playing for possibly a really good bowl game, a double digit season. Maybe if they get a little luck here, they could still compete for the conference with two losses. But Blake, they'll be playing the hardest opponent in the conference. They'll get to, or no, sorry, that's the next game. They'll be hosting Tulsa. They've played Tulsa twice in the American Conference. They've beat Tulsa twice. Who
Yep,
do
I
you
don't
have
even.
here? This is going to be interesting. FAU strength coach went over to Tulsa, and FAU's outside linebackers coach went over to Tulsa. FAU's going to be with that little revenge there with those two guys, even though it's a new team. But what do you think here in this FAU versus Tulsa game?
I think FAU handles business here. I think even if you're mentioning they lost the two before, they're coming out hot. I think they're still kind of riding that high. Obviously after two road games, they're going to be glad to be back with the home crowd.
Looks like there's some connection issues with Blake. It
There we
is
go. We're good.
South Florida. There are thunders out here, so if Wi-Fi cut out, bear with us, ladies and gentlemen. Blake, go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, I have FAU beating Tulsa. I think they handle it after, coming back home and having the home crowd behind them. FAU gonna get it done.
Yeah, I definitely could see that an upset happening here. But I just think that Tulsa's not that good. They're just not that good. They've won 3 and 4 games the last 2 years, and I don't have any animosity, anything against Tulsa. I just think FAU's the better overall team, and that give me FAU there. So Blake has FAU at 7-1. I have FAU at 6, or Blake has FAU at 8-1. I have FAU at 7-2. Blake, FAU's 8-1 at this point. Are they ranked for your if you're an AP voter?
I think it depends on how Tulane's doing at this point, and we will touch on them in a second, and also how everyone else is doing in the nation. I think that loss at USF might hurt them a little bit because that's who I have them losing to. So I think you may be still getting some votes, but they've definitely fallen. They're not in the top 25 currently at 8-1. I think though, if they get an upset win over Tulane, they got to be in the top 25 at 9-1. But I honestly don't see that happening going into the Green Wave Stadium and, getting a dub out there. I think Tulane's gonna be has a very strong chance of being the representative in the G5. They had a great season last year and hung in with some great opponents. Also, Tulane has a pretty, they have a good schedule. They got a lot of great opponents on there. I'm looking at it right now: Northwestern, Duke, Ole Miss as their non-conference opponents. That will be a challenge for them. I think they get a dub over Northwestern. Duke and Ole Miss, I could see those being losses because I think they're both really strong teams. But, if they end up steamrolling their conference, they do have Army in there, which is a pretty highly rated team. So, Tulane has some challenges on their schedule. I think overall, though, they're going to be able to take care of FAU, sadly, which might knock FAU out of the conference contention.
Yeah, 100%, Blake. Now, we'll run through these last two games quickly. I also have them dropping a game to Tulane. Jake Retzlaff, I think he's the best quarterback in the conference. I have Caden Velkamp at 2. But then FAU's last two games, they host UConn, which they got blown out against last year, and they host East Carolina. I have them ending the season with 2 wins and them finishing it this season 9-3 regular season. We don't know the bowl game, so we can't predict it. Blake, How do you have FAU ending the season?
Yeah, I have FAU 10-2. Because you did give him the loss against Navy. I think they upset Navy 10-2. Conference championship possibilities, depending on how some of the other big players in this conference, um, finish up. I think if Navy and Tulane, have some losses in some trap games, could definitely see FAU get into that conference championship.
Yeah, Blake. And then last question for you here. I know you have to go pretty soon, but obviously, when you predict teams, you have ceiling, floor, and then prediction. Obviously, you gave your prediction at 10-2, but what's the ceiling and what's the floor, and why do you see these two at the ceiling and the floor?
I think FAU will lose one game. So I think definitely their ceiling is 11-1. I can't go 12-0. I think that's just a little bit of a ridiculous prediction. One, because I feel like FAU does have a lot of potential. The games that I said were kind of toss ups were Maryland, Memphis, South Florida, Navy.
Guys, connection issues in South
Floor
Florida.
as a
Blake,
team.
we lost him there. Oh, Blake is back. Blake, are you there? Blake, are you there? You can keep your camera off if it's easier, Blake. So we lost Blake there. He said 11-1 ceiling. I agree with him. I think 11-1 is the ceiling. My prediction's 9-3. There's Blake. Blake, what's your floor? You cut out there. Blake, you cut out with your floor there. Can you hear us? All right, looks like there's some connection difficulties there with Blake, but I have FAU at my ceiling at 11-1. Prediction 9-3-4-6-6. I think they make the bowl game at least. Thank you guys so much for watching our FAU season preview and predictions. Please make sure to hit that subscribe button, leave a like, and turn on that post notification for every time you get a video to be notified. Thank you guys so much for watching. See y'all in the next one. Peace.